Okay.
Say something brilliant about the seat.
Say something what?
Brilliant for the first
Brilliant.
time ever.
Okay, here we go. Um, the aids, to do the aids correctly, you have to have a proper seat.
Mhm.
The aids are the application of imagination to sensation.
I love that quote.
Yeah, I do too. Because um, there's a common, I don't know if it's a common view, but I think everybody, when you're introduced to horses, there's two parts to the riding. There's doing and being. And what's interesting is when we're teaching riding in the broad general sense, we meaning the planet, the general planet of universal horsemanship, okay, starts with doing instead of being.
Yeah.
So seat training, if the seat training is done correctly, or if you understand seat training, is, and I'll say this like it's an absolute, you perfect being, right, before you even try to do doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the issue with that is, John Q. Public, is here's your horse, get on, ride. And it's like the first question that comes up is, oh my God, where is this thing going and how do I stop it?
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of how do I sit well, not in the way that's simple, because the animal starts to move. The question is, why is the horse moving? Is it because you're annoying it and it's trying to find its equilibrium? Or is it a dance that you're both attending? And I mean, rightfully, the seat and the cultivation of the seat began in two very, I want to say, very different places. One was the aesthetics of the European nobility, but also you had to add to that the capability of precision necessary for the military application.
So would
So
you say the difference between those seats is the military application, there's more contact with the leg, versus nobility, the leg is more loose and relaxed? Is that
I
accurate?
don't, you know what? I don't know how black and white it really was or is per se.
That's just based on my experience looking at pictures.
Well,
You look at De La Grenier, like his feet are a little bit danglier and more forward,
right.
versus if you look at more of the like early 20th century, late 19th
Well,
century,
Nuno
and the
Oliveira,
legs more bent and underneath.
Nuno Oliveira seat, the way that Nuno Oliveira sits.
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, not that that's the only way per se, but I mean, it's like, here's a here's a stupid statement, all right, but there's no right way to sit a horse except the way that is comfortable and appropriate. which
Right,
is which is to say that, like people, we can engage in different ways. When I say there's no universal seat, it's like very Zen, because there is no universal seat. It's appropriate for the horse at any given time or any given moment, which depends on what the two of you want to do, either
right. Well,
together
and the
or
seat's
apart.
very personal for the rider because everybody is
Exactly.
built slightly differently. So one of the things I'm thinking we should do is define even though there's lots of different types of seats out there, what a good seat is. And a good seat, in my opinion, is one that doesn't interfere with the horse, that it moves with the horse. Like a lot of times people think, oh, the point of seat work is so that they don't fall off. Like I remember
Right.
when I first came to see you in Washington and you put me through seat training, and I thought, well, I've been riding since I was 5 years old. I don't need seat training. I don't fall off very much. And everybody says I have a good seat, but all your horses moved under me like little clothespins.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like a clothespin on them, and they didn't want to move because I didn't move with the horse, that I had this mechanical seat.
Right.
And so you have to have your motion mold with the horse's motion, which is something
Exactly.
I didn't have before. And that way you're not grabbing on the reins, you're not holding with your legs to try to stay on the horse. And that's without a really good seat, you're never going to have a light horse.
Well, the thing is that when you have a bad seat, what a bad seat is the inability to follow. And a bad seat is the ability to stay out of rhythm with the
Yeah.
horse.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, it's like, duh, because when you see a beginner is bouncing off the back of a horse that much, I mean, well, duh.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and then you look at um, it really doesn't matter what riding school. If it's a serious riding school, the appearance of the seat is one of connection to the horse. All right. And it's based on the job that you have to do.
Mhm.
So, one of the things that, especially in recent times, when I've been thinking about the aids and I've been thinking about the seat, one of the things that comes to my mind is something that Francois used to say, um, about back in the day in my 20s. I knew everything about riding back then, And so one of the things Francois used to say was, well, that's because you think it's that way. It's like, because I come up with this whole cosmic equitation thing, and he's like, he's a military riding instructor. He doesn't give a damn about the cosmic anything.
Mhm.
What matters is, and the proof of good riding is in the doing. Can you do things with your horse? Now, that's not my personal view, but that is the view of military riding, because you're going to go to battle. I get a limited amount of time to teach somebody who knows little or nothing about horses, and then they have to go and fight on horseback.
Mhm.
Like I think as a riding instructor, both you and I, as riding instructors, appreciate what it means to take a beginner and in a matter of 6 to 8 weeks. Can you imagine sending a bunch of those people, all right, on an attack to attack someone, or maybe even worse is to defend something?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like how many really good riders would it take to absolutely embarrass a group of how many of those kinds of military trained riders?
Mhm.
So there's an element of which we don't think about in like thinking about the seat is, why do we teach it the way we teach it today? How did we get to where we are today? Because there is a generic, we could call it the FEI seat. I don't know that that's a distinction worthy of being made. But there's, given the body of the horse, the principal action is to communicate to the horse. So,
Mhm.
how many different ways can one imagine to do that? And the answer is many. But what you're looking for, all right, is it doesn't exhaust you and it doesn't exhaust the horse.
Mhm.
Okay. So, and that's a significant thing, which means that if you've ever gone out with like a bunch of friends, okay, think about the quality of social qualities of relationships. And what I mean by that is if you're going out with a group of people that you really enjoy and you really like, it's a very relaxing thing. But if you go out with somebody who is looking for a performance from you, there's this feeling of anxiety. And I mean, it varies from person to person.
Mhm.
Some it's not significant, others it's very significant. Then you have the same issue with the horse. You have this
Mhm.
performance
I could
anxiety,
totally relate to that.
you know. So it's like the first thing is I'm putting you up, I'm taking your feet off the ground. The only time you've had any experience of that, more than likely, if you're like most people, is when you sit on a bar stool,
Mhm.
because your rear end's in the air and your legs are hanging.
Mhm.
Okay. And then it's like, well, what are you looking for? You're looking for that thing that you're perched upon moves in a certain way. Okay. If you were the thing underneath, meaning if you were the horse, how would you want that thing up there to move? And there's two answers. One is not at all right, and the other one is in complete harmony.
Mhm.
Not at all is a philosophy in in dressage is the combined effect.
Mhm.
In other words, what do? You close the legs, you stretch up with the body, and you close the hand.
Mhm.
The feeling is no.
Yeah.
That means the horse stops. So you build it into the seat. But
Mhm.
if you build it into the seat, if I say, okay, stop, look, the pen's in balance. Whoop, no, it isn't. In
Well,
other words,
I love you talking about the idea of how abnormal it is for us to be on the back of a horse and how we never experience that where our butts in the air and our feet are dangling. Because I mean, I remember how long it took me to learn not to press on my stirrups. And I have a lot of students right now that are finally figuring out how to not press on their stirrups after
right,
years of riding and pressing on their stirrups. And I was thinking about why does this take so long? And I think it's because when you feel something under your feet, your natural instinct is to press on it.
yes,
Because if you don't do that when you're standing up, you're going to fall over.
right.
And so it takes so long for people to realize that they could just have the stirrups on their feet and that they don't have to press on it. But I think because of instinct, that it just takes a certain amount of time for people to find that. But
Well, and
exercises I
then
like,
once,
oh, go ahead.
no, I was going to say, once you get that, and your psyche, we will call it, tolerates that the feet in the air thing, and you have confidence about your torso weight on your seat bones, you
Mhm,
can't actually use your legs without doing all kinds of weird twisty things.
mhm,
So that once you come to, if you could come to, if I could make it perfect seat is you come to this zero state in which you can move in any direction at any time, and like there's a way actually you physically can get a feeling for that, which is kind of weird. If you take your hand and then you bring your other hand over it, and so you're kind of cupping your hands like this. Okay, now use your inner hand to rotate your wrist on the other hand. Then use the outer hand to rotate the wrist. Now use both hands together. You see, that's what it takes for a seat.
mm,
You understand? And you can without breaking the contact, you can pull the hands apart and push them together. So what you're feeling is the springiness of the joints.
mhm, right.
See, what's missing in this analogy compared to the horse is there's no music.
Mhm,
In other words, I'm saying, but if I were now to say to you, right, left, right, and you start making music out of it, and then you look to feel that fluidity in the joints. That's what it's like when you're doing Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. So the seat gives the capability of doing nothing first,
Mm-hmm.
finding zero, which is what I'm saying with it. When you're doing this little wiggle thing and you get it to where both are doing it, the feeling is fluidity in the joint. You have that feeling of float. All
Mm-hmm.
right. That's a really good seat.
Right.
So so it starts from your core. So if you're being Tai Chi-ish, we call it Tantien. It's from your center.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And that, like fixing the seat, for example, which I don't know that anybody would understand what that is. The general thing is that when most people sit on the horse, they sit too far back.
Right.
And
Yeah.
with like some, for example, some of the, I generally think of Western saddles, but I know it's also in English saddles too. But there are some saddles where you literally push your feet out ahead, you push your rear end to the cantle of the saddle. And you
Right.
can,
And well, you were talking about the spring of the joints. One of the reasons you want it to be like you're standing, it should be like an athletic position when you're standing. It doesn't matter what sport you're doing, you always
that's exactly right.
have a bend to your knees because that way your joints can absorb everything. When you push on
Right.
your stirrups like that, it's like jumping from a box with your knees straight.
Right.
It's gonna rattle you and it's gonna rattle the horse too.
Right. And that's why they call it a supple seat. And I think one of the best um, um, congruent or similar analogies is skiing moguls.
Oh yeah. I
Okay.
know
In other
that.
words, you don't lock your knees
No.
and you don't brace against the ski.
Mhm,
What happens is the ski and your knees and your hips,
mhm.
you're functioning like a spring.
Well, the other thing too that I noticed when I went skiing recently is that you can always tell a beginner skier like you can tell a beginner rider. They're like this. They're
Right.
all spread out.
Right.
And then when you see the better skiers, they're all together and connected to their core. What do you see with beginner riders? They're all spread out and their arms are everywhere.
Well,
When you
yes,
see an
good.
advanced rider, they're very quiet and come from their center.
Yeah, and also that, and also in the horse.
Oh
Because if
yeah,
you watch horses, you watch their feet are all God knows where the hell they're basic. A horse is basically a table. It's got four legs, all
right.
right, with a weight in the front, a big weight in the front. You
Hmm.
know, and what if you watch what most green horses do? They don't particularly, at least to my eye, easier to see is defects in the shoulders.
Hmm.
Because what happens is when they don't use the shoulders properly, they fall over.
Right.
Okay, so the question is where, if the horse is horizontal, we're vertical.
Hmm.
So if I put you horizontal, how would you have to, how would you want to use your seat, your weight, your full basis of support? How would you want it carried? And the answer is you'd have to carry it on the shoulders and push from the rear.
Hmm.
So the front has the job of catching, all right, not pulling.
Hmm.
There's a very so anyway. The same
Well,
thing is true of the seat. It mirrors perfectly over to how the rider should sit and how the rider should use the aids.
right. And you were talking about getting zero with the rider's seat. Well, you have to get zero with the horse first.
Right.
And one of the things that I think is so interesting is like we talk so much about the horse having to be connected, that their head has to be very in alignment with their hind end and they have to be straight. Well, it's the same thing with the rider, that what we're doing in the seat training is aligning the horse, or sorry, excuse me, aligning the rider so that they're very connected too. And you'll see people like do the leaning and the collapsing on the side or sticking the head in and out. And I always think it's fascinating when you see riders lean and you watch them from behind and the horse is just mimicking They're
Yeah.
feeding
Absolutely.
perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and in essence, if we would have shortened this down to a couple of sentences, you say the horse and the rider have to stand up square.
Yep.
And then when they move, they have to move squarely, which is not an appearance, it's the rhythm.
Right.
But the rhythm leads to the appearance.
hmm
And the mistake that people commonly make is they try to make the appearance, all right, be what leads to the balance.
hmm
When what has to happen in both the horse and the rider is each one of them have to come into self carriage.
Right. Yeah.
Once they're in self carriage and they align, the aids are never wrong.
hmm
Okay, now when I say to you the aids are never wrong, it's because both bodies are always acting in harmony. The
Right.
next issue is your mind. So when I've said to you, I think the three elements, cardinal, mutable, and fixed. And cardinality, when I say this cardinality, there's always cardinality. Cardinality means like with you put a beginner average rider up. The first issue of the seat is the loss of cardinality, meaning that the rider thinks I'm going from this point here to that point there, from A to B.
hmm
That's cardinality. But when you put a beginner up and they have no ability to control the horse, they not only don't get from A to B, they may end up at Z,
Right.
and be dragged all over the place. And the problem with that is, first off, that there's no harmony. All right. And then cardinality is always happening. All right. So you then have, okay, so the horse is going from point A to C, and I really would like it to go to B. So the first way to get to B is to go to C. That doesn't mean you go fully there, but that you're not afraid of that direction. So if the horse is going to push one way and then push the other. So if you want to go that way, that's the one you want to support.
hmm
Okay. But the horse is going to keep doing this,
Right.
and you pick your favorite to follow.
hmm
Having a good seat enables you not only to pick your favorite, but to stay in the middle.
Yeah.
Okay. So, relative to the weight, like what people think is, oh, well, the weight comes here to slow and there to go. And it's actually, yeah, that's true. But once you know that, then for God's sakes, don't do that.
hmm
You see, because then you get the people leaning or trying to, and they're trying to rigidly own the cardinality and find cardinality without doing it through harmony.
hmm
Okay. So there has to be a harmonious movement. So you have cardinality, that desire to pick a direction, and you and the horse ultimately have to be in that same place. All right. But you're both drawn there from the comfort of unity. All right. So you got mutable, or mutability is the ability to harden and to loosen. So if you look at the movement, how's the movement occur? One side hardens, one side loosens. So what does that mean for your seat? If you're relaxed, that sway is happening on its own.
Yeah.
And then the next question is, how much muscle is there when you're doing that? Do you need any muscle at all? Can you use just gravity for it?
hmm
And then once it begins, can you be pathetic? Because you don't have to do anything or change anything there. Okay, so that's cardinal immutable. And then if the cardinality doesn't work, you become a little more firm
hmm
at one point in the cycle, another a little bit looser. But you're working the loose tight, which is the nature of the motion, all right, to control the cardinality. And if it's well done, the horse thinks it's going where it wants to go.
hmm
And you just feel like you're just going along for the ride. Horse does all the work.
Staying in the middle and staying in balance.
Right. And then if you look at I mean, I don't know how deep do you want to go into it? Well, if you look at it,
We're running out of time.
that's,
Too deep.
okay. So we shouldn't go into it too deep. Okay, but the key to immobility is mobility, which is very peculiar. That's seat training.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right. You have to move everything until you find the thing in you, all right, which is in your seat, of course, that doesn't move.
Mm-hmm.
Then the thing that doesn't move has to mimic the back of the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And the seat training is about cultivating discernment and awareness in your own body. So
Mm-hmm.
am I rambling?
Little bit.
Thank God it's the end.
Yeah. Okay, till next
Okay.
time.
So what we should, I'm not sure how far to go in doing seat training in this kind of a discussion, only because I think it's something you have to do. And I
I
can't,
have been posting some videos on Instagram of seat working exercises. So
oh, good.
if anybody wants to go check those out. Got one
Yeah.
on fixing the seat, we got one on kick downs, and we got one on bringing your legs underneath you and standing up out of the saddle and twisting behind. So
Okay.
yep.
Wow.
I'm on it. You just don't follow me on
I
Instagram.
know. I know.
Yep.
It speaks to my laziness.
It's okay. Well, we'll see you later out in the barn.
Okay.
All
Sounds
right.
like fun. Ciao.
Bye.